Now that we've discussed positive spirits and radiant beauty, we're going to talk about healthy bodies and taking care of number one, self-practices that work. And this panel is being sponsored by OsteoStrong. And so I'd like to introduce Sean Hover, if you'd come to the stage. So OsteoStrong is a nationwide franchise for building better bones, improved strength, and balance. And Sean has his location on Park Avenue here in New York City.
I own a franchise here in New York City on 60th Street between Park and Madison called OsteoStrong. What we do is I like to say that we're building your strength from the inside out. What a lot of people don't realize, and really sort of the premise of what we do, is that from the time we're born until about the age of 30, our bones are regenerating. You actually have a brand new set of bones about every 7 years until you turn 30. When all of us, both men and women, hit 30-ish, that stops. There's a medical term for what that is. It's called osteogenesis. And what we do is we have specialized equipment, 4 different pieces of equipment that you come in and use 1 time a week. It literally only takes about 10 or 15 minutes. And the equipment is designed to teach your bones to start regenerating again like they did before you were 30. So a lot of our members have osteopenia or osteoporosis or have that in their family. We are the non-pharmaceutical treatment for osteoporosis and osteopenia. But it's not just for that condition. We have members between 19 and 90. One other little fact that most people don't know is that your nervous system will never let your muscles get stronger than your bones. So once your bones stop regenerating at 30, it becomes harder and harder. You can go to the gym every day, but it's going to get harder and harder to build muscle and tone. So what we do is once we start getting your bones stronger, whatever activity you're doing is also going to get your muscles more tone, look better, and feel better. We also have some other things there that we offer that aren't focused on your bones, but your overall wellness. We have red light therapy, helps collagen production, hair growth. We also have what we call a PEMF mat that helps get all of the EMF energy out of our bodies that we pick up from our cell phones and computers and laptops and all of those things. And we also have these compression boots that you put on that help with your circulation. And so generally, people walk out feeling really good. The last thing I'll say is that we're not exercise. So when you come in, you can come in dressed any way you are, whatever shoes you have, whatever you're wearing, and you do not break a sweat. It's what we're doing is triggering bone regeneration. If you want to exercise, go to the gym. We're not anti-gym. Knock yourself out. You're going to still feel good. But what we do is trigger bone regeneration that gets everything else going. The first thing people notice after coming to us is their balance. Within weeks, you'll feel that your balance is better. The second thing you'll notice is your overall strength is better. You'll start being able to pick things up that don't feel as heavy as they used to. And then the last thing is if you're getting bone density scans, DEXA scans, I have every one of my members that has had a DEXA scan before and at least a year after coming to us has improved. And we're very proud of that and hope to see you all come by. We do offer complimentary sessions. So your first session is totally free. We take you through what a regular session would be. It's membership based. It's one fee. You come in 4 times a month. And if you, when you make your appointment, let us know that you were at the symposium today. We'll do a 1-month upgrade where you get the red light and compression boots and PEMF complimentary for a month, and then you can decide if you want to go from there. So I think we have about a dozen people here today that are actually my members. So I'll be around the rest of the day if you have any questions. I'll be at the cocktail hour as well, of course. Looking forward to that, especially being this outnumbered. But anyway, that's a little bit about us, and hope you'll take advantage of coming by and seeing us. Thank you.
So first of all, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Sallie Fraenkel, president of the Mind, Body, Spirit Network, and an iconic leader in all things health and wellness. Sonia Satra. Sonia is the founder and CEO of Moticise, and the power of mindset and movement to get unstuck and into gear. Tracey Vincel, she's a founder of KNOSIS Physiotherapy and Wellness and Body Discovery. And lastly, Yamuna Zake, who is a master teacher of body sustainability and the founder of Yamuna, which is a global brand with a network of over 450 practitioners.
Thank you, Anne. So first of all, I really want to thank you, Ann Akers, and you, Cheryl Benton, for bringing us all together today for what so far has been an extraordinary renewal summit. It's my first one in person. I don't know about the rest of you, but I have already learned so much, and so I'm very grateful to you, and hopefully we'll continue this trend right now at this panel. I want to first start just by saying this is Yamuna Zake. Anne, I like your pronunciation, but I want to make sure everybody knows this is Yamuna Zake, Tracey Vincel, and Sonia Satra. I feel incredibly lucky to be the one brunette with these incredibly gorgeous women up here, all of whom I know as colleagues and as friends, so lucky me. And hopefully at the end of this panel, you will know them also. Our panel today is called Taking Care of Number One, Self-Care Practices That Work. And I want to just give you all a little heads up that with this panel, while I am going to ask a number of questions and you're going to learn a lot from these incredible women, I'm also going to ask to hear from you all. So if you have any questions, I'm giving you a heads up that we want to hear from you. And the second thing I want to let you know is that we will not remain seated for the entire 40 minutes. Just a little alert that we may actually get up and stretch and move our bodies and take care of ourselves in that way. So now that we have all of that taken care of, let's jump right into our questions. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't start off by asking each one of you what your definition is of self-care. So I'm going to ask you, Tracey, first.
Well, thank you. And I just want to say, it seems such a beautiful coincidence that I'm here because 1 month from now, I'm turning 50. And it just feels like it's a moment in time. And I'm meeting all of these incredible women, and I just feel very inspired. So I'm very grateful that I was invited. And thank you, Sallie, for inviting me to be on this panel. I think self-care really starts with a definition of self. So I can be the experience of my body. I could also be the experience of my mind. I could be the experience of my emotions, my soul, my spirit. I mean, self-care is really about all of that. And I've spent some time diving into the indigenous cultures and traveling and studying with wisdom traditions, and they've helped me to feel what it was like to know my entire body. And I think that feeling is something like my body is an extension of the earth. My breath is an extension of the air. My circulation is an extension of the entire, waters of the earth. And if I can feel that, and, Deepak Chopra always says this, and I love how he says, our atoms inside of us, every atom inside of us, if we go there with this perspective, are being forged in the crucible of stars. So are we really stardust beings having, an experience, a human experience? Okay, so if we go that far out, then we can feel the magnificence of who we are. And if we can feel that uniqueness, that beauty, that, who we really are, then we start saying, wow, how could I not take care of myself? Because this is such a unique experience being human. And I mean, there's so much wonder and awe in that. And that's where I think self-care starts with. And if we start there, then we can start talking on this panel about those each individual items within those categories.
Thank you, Tracey. Sonia, tell us what you think self-care is.
Ooh, wow, that was a tough one to follow. So I might bring it in I love it. It's spectacularly beautiful, that imagery. But I think what I think of as self-care is what brings you joy. And whether it's a particle or it's you as a human. And I think everybody is individual. What brings one person joy is different from somebody else. Somebody might love to go and get a massage. Somebody else might want to run a triathlon. Somebody else might want to travel to, I don't know, Tibet. But I think to Tracey's point, when you feel that feeling or that element of joy deep within you, it does encompass all of the senses, and it does help you tap into everything, your entire mind, your body, and your soul. But how you get there, what experience gets you there, is different a little bit for everyone. So I think it's taking the moment to really settle in to that question of what really brings happiness to you, what makes you happy, and how might you make that happen in your life more.
I'm thinking as they're talking, and I'm definitely a decade or more older than they are, and so I know that self-care changes at every decade, and that what really worked for me when I was 30 and what really works for me now, almost 70, is hugely different. And I think, number one, as we get older, we have more time to actually reflect and to actually look at, what do I need? What's my body telling me? What's my emotional life telling me? What's my spirit telling me? And I think because of that time that we have, we can actually look at, almost make that checklist of, gee, my knee is telling me, why am I losing my hair? Or why am I waking up every morning with my jaw or my neck hurting? What is that? Maybe you've been clenching and grinding for your whole life, but it only now started bothering you. And so I think self-care really is, as you said, very individual, but it's individual and daily, our self-care. What do I really need today? Maybe it's playing hooky. Okay, maybe it's just like blowing everything off and having a great day for yourself. But then there's the real scanning of your body, scanning of your whole being, and being real about it. What do I need? Without guilt. Oh yeah, I know I should be doing that. Oh yeah, I should have a diet. Oh, I should do this. Oh, I should do that. None of that. But it's really that relationship and dialogue with yourself.
Thank you. Well, of course, when Anne asked me to do this panel, my first thought was, why would I be talking about self-care? So I went right away to Google, which we often do, and I Googled what self-care means. Of course, they were just as many definitions as probably, you all would expect. The one that I picked up, I thought that was really interesting to me, was self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. The practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. So I think that was an interesting and a resonant definition for me, especially as we are all coming, if we can say we're coming out of COVID. I'm not sure whether that is accurate or not, but it feels like we're coming out of COVID, and I think that certainly brought a lot of focus on self-care. But when we met, the three of us, to talk about this panel, I asked each one of you what you do, because you were each selected, because you do do various elements of self-care for others and helping them. So I got the following answers. And I honestly do not remember who said what. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the answers I got, and as I give them, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. Who said, save your body parts? We'll crowdsource and see if you all can get this right. Okay, I like that. Who said, make the body simple? Yamuna. Who said, body empowerment and sustainability? Yamuna. Here, clearly I wrote down all of Yamuna's answers. Who said...
We're in agreement. We're in agreement on that one.
Who said integrative fitness? Very good, Sonia. Tracey, what was your answer?
So I have a physiotherapy and wellness center. So I'm a physical therapist of 25 years, and what I do is try to understand why is that person in front of me in pain. So I have to go through many layers. Of course, the physical is a very important layer, but one of the things I really love to do is help people to feel something different in their body. So I think it's about blending the understanding that's more intellectual, because we kind of get it, to actually embodying it and feeling something different. So one of my ways of doing that is through Pilates or gyrotonic, or a way to help them to notice a deep muscle system that they never knew before. And once they have that feeling inside, then they can maintain that feeling. But it's giving them that feeling of letting go of maybe an old pattern. Yamuna, I've been very inspired by all of her work and using the ball rolling and the different techniques for letting go of tension, but then feeling something new and connecting to a new pattern. That's what I really love to do for my clients.
So I should have written down connecting to a new pattern, feeling into the body. Thank you. Sonia, you have created a practice that's called Moticise. Can you tell us more about that?
So it is an integration of mind and body. I think I always enjoyed fitness when I was younger, and my mom hates when I say this, but she at one point said, if you spent as much time on your mind as you do on your body, you'd be a very balanced person. And I thought, well, okay, so it's probably no mistake. I have created something that is equally mind, equally body. And I, like many of us, hearing what we heard earlier today, have had my own struggles with body and body image. And I think so often when we think of fitness or when we think of exercise, there's this, it's followed by a groan of like, it's a should, it's a thing I have to do, it's something I have to do lose weight or whatever. And even though people know that they have a lot of benefit, it sometimes isn't necessarily their first choice of what they want to do for self-care. And yet, the body is incredibly powerful, and I think we're going to hear that from everybody up here today. The body has so many answers. There's infinite intelligence within each and every one of us. So when we find ways to tap into that body, to tap into that internal knowing, it gives you answers to just about anything you're looking for. And so often we try to overthink it, but when we allow ourselves to settle in and feel and listen to what the body has to say, it will help you solve your problems. So Moticise really takes that idea, takes that connectiveness between the mind and body and directs it very intentionally towards a goal. So what is a goal that you really want to achieve in your life? Something that's exciting, something that you're passionate about. And then we move. And then I ask a series of questions while you're moving so that you're not only thinking, but you're also unlocking the answers that live within you. And within that, by the end of the process, you actually have some action items to move you closer towards your goal. And it's incredible things. People have come up with brand new business ideas, strategies. They've solved relationship problems. They've, figured out how to go about doing things that they were feeling very stuck on. And so it really is combining those two in sort of a beautiful way. And the byproduct is people who don't love exercise sometimes really love Moticise because they're thinking about something they really want. So that's Moticise.
Sounds motivational to me. Thank you, Sonia. Yamuna, you a little bit earlier alluded to this, and we've talked a bit about the fact that age matters, and it matters in self-care. I was hoping you could elaborate on that and tell us a little bit about how we can save our backs and our shoulders and our knees and some of our other very valuable body parts.
Well, I've been doing this for a long time, about 43 years, in fact. And as I grew in developing, creating all my work, I realized, and particularly now that I'm older, that what I thought I really knew and that I was really smart about when I was in my 30s, 40s, and 50s doesn't work when you're over 60. Okay, it doesn't. The bone changes, the muscle quality changes, your organs change, everything changes. And so for me, it's about how do you be as good as you can get it at every age? And so because the body's so big and it has so many, people get lost in it. And so, what do I do? How do I do it? And so years ago, I created a Save Your Body Part series so that I realized that, if you give someone the whole body, it's too much. But if they can identify a part, oh yeah, I've got a shoulder problem. And then you make it simple. This is what's there. These are the bones that go together. These are how the muscles go together. Now let's put it back together. Yourself. And they realize they can. And so I pretty much do that with every part of the body so that it makes it simple for people. It's not so hard to fix it. You just have to do it. That's the biggie. You just have to do it. And so what's interesting for me is when we did, during COVID, the lockdown, my daughter said, "Mom, we're going online." I said, "What do you mean online? I touch people. I have to touch them. We're going online." Okay. And we did. And what we did was we reached hundreds of more people. And a few weeks ago, we did feet. I said, you know what, let's do feet. I've written a book about feet. I've written a couple books, 3 books. But we did it, and there were 192 people that signed up within 2 weeks. And we thought, wow, because a lot of people have foot problems. A lot of people have shoulder problems. A lot of these things start to show up. I never noticed anything in my body until I hit 65, and so I get it now that I have to rethink, wow. So I was working with people that were, in their 60s, 70s, 80s when I was in my 30s and 40s and thought I knew. And you know what? Now I'm in that skin. I'm in that body. And I get how it all changes. And so that I can help people understand that. So, yeah.
I love that. Well, I promised you all that we were going to hear from you. So if there is anyone who has a question, feel free to raise your hand. The only thing I'll ask is that you say your question very loudly so we can all hear it. Is there anybody who has a question for any of these wonderful? Okay, I saw you first. I don't know your name, but please speak loudly. Thank you. Well, certainly heard of Feldenkrais. Is that something that any of you want to address?
Absolutely. I
Yes?
think the reason why you're not hearing is because we've all created our own systems. Right. And so if there was a person on the panel that did Feldenkrais, you would clearly hear about Feldenkrais. I think he was a genius personally. I was able to spend a weekend doing a seminar with him. Tough guy. Really smart.
And that's a great question, Celeste. Just to clarify, for those of you who don't know, when I was first introduced to Yamuna, I didn't know Yamuna was a person. I was introduced to Yamuna foot rolling at Canyon Ranch many years ago. much to my surprise, years later, and Yamuna knows this story, I heard there was actually a person named Yamuna who created Yamuna foot rolling. So she is a person and a brand, much like Pilates. Tracey has created something we're going to talk about that you haven't heard about yet, called the Body Discovery, which is really quite fascinating, and we'll come back to that. And as you heard just a few minutes ago, Sonia has created a practice called Moticise. So as Yamuna said, that is why we're talking about those systems, but Feldenkrais, obviously could be part of anyone's self-care practice.
I'll just say also that in my practice, we do have a Feldenkrais practitioner. We do incorporate Feldenkrais into the physiotherapy and wellness services. And it's a beautiful practice because it's very much about slow, rhythmical movement. It's a lot about the awareness of movement. So reading, some of Moshe Feldenkrais's work, Awareness Through Movement is one of his classic books, and you can learn that by connecting deeply. It's almost like a moving meditation, and it helps you to start to balance out these outer and inner muscles. We'll go into that a little bit more, but the outer muscles can kind of get, we call them the mobilizers, but they're larger muscles that are there for power. And those deeper stabilizers, from my perspective as a physiotherapist trying to get people out of pain, I have to get those deeper muscles engaging and those outer muscles starting to let go a little bit in just regular walking around general exercise, walking low threshold things. There's usually an imbalance between those two. And so Feldenkrais is perfect for doing that.
I saw another question. Before we come to you, I saw someone back here that, yes, sorry, hi. And then we'll come to you in the front, yes.
That's okay, I'm Diane, and thank you for mentioning feet. My feet have always been an issue, and now I'm hitting the age where they're becoming more of an issue. So I'll be following up.
And as I said, that was my introduction to Yamuna's work as well. And the foot wakers, let me just say, they wake your feet up. And so you'll have to talk to Yamuna more about that. And I know you had a question.
Yeah, I'm Patricia, and
Hi, Patricia.
we all come to this, we're all here because we're older and we're dealing with all this. So do you work with children and teens? Because I think it's critical for them to start this process.
I agree. I wish that there was more for young people to learn how their bodies really work. I think that would be wonderful. I see a few teenagers, but majority of the people that we see in our practice are between the ages of 30 and say 60, but we see all ages. But I agree. I think we should all learn how our bodies work so that we can do this from early on instead of, we always wait until we have pain. This is the problem. That's why we need to change that pattern. I definitely agree.
I agree too, because I work with children. I've worked with children when I had my studio here on Perry Street. And the quicker you change feet around, the quicker you change alignment patterns around in children, they're malleable. Everything is soft. So you can do that. You can change that. So yes, absolutely.
And
All
I'm
ages.
open to working with children. I was supposed to do a whole kids program, Moticise kids program, right before COVID hit, and it got canceled. So we're talking now about trying to bring it back. Yeah.
Any other questions before I go back to my questions? Yes, I see in the back in red.
Thank you, my name's Scarlett. Do you have any perspectives on energy healing work, whether it be Reiki or any such thing?
Oh, you're asking the right group for this. Who wants to take that first? Yamuna?
Well, I feel there's a big energy component in what I do, but part of what I look for when I go for any kind of medicine is energy medicine and ways to heal with energy. I think that that's the way of the future. I think that, I can connect you to give you a lot of names, but yeah, I think it's the way to go.
And I would say that energy is really where it starts. So there's an energy that then manifests into the physical. So by addressing the energy as well as the physical, you're going to have a more effective, holistic program. And I'll just say I personally do acupuncture every week. That's the way I work on my energy. And it's super powerful and wonderful to work on energy in some intentional way every day.
I'm going to ask a question now, and I'm going to go to you, Sonia, because we've been talking a lot about the body because you're all body practitioners. So obviously you're naturally going to be focused on the body, but I'd like you to talk about where the mind is in all of this And what about all of our other parts, the thinking part, the feeling part? How does all that affect our self-care?
Well, I think our minds definitely impact our bodies. We know that for a fact from scientific studies. What you think, definitely, even just how you sit, how you feel. If you think about something happy, you're gonna, right? You're gonna sit up a little straighter. You're gonna, we could do like a kinesiology little experiment where you press down your arm. If you imagine something that's powerful or empowering or happy, should we do it?
Yes, get someone.
Who wants to do a little? Who
Looking
wants to be
for
a quick
a
little
volunteer.
mind-body experiment?
Come on right up with
Great.
a white jacket.
All right.
You don't have
So-
too far to walk.
So we'll just show how powerful the mind on the body can actually be. It's a really easy one. You can do it with your kids and your grandkids too. They love this. Okay, so we're just gonna put our arm out and keep it really strong. Actually, I'm gonna have you face the audience. Is that okay? And then, are you lefty or righty? You're righty. Okay. So I'm gonna go on this side. So we're using our strongest arm. So face the audience, beautiful, and stick your arm out straight. I just want it to be not straight, that's to the side. So it's directly straight out to the side. Perfect. Okay, so we're just gonna do a simple, what's your name?
Maria.
Maria. So think of your name and really try to resist my pressing down. And think of your name, Maria. Great. So now I want you to say, my name is Minnie Mouse. And put your arm out.
My name is Minnie Mouse.
That didn't take much. Okay. So now, and if you want, and if you feel safe and comfortable, you could close your eyes for this. If not, you could just look down, but maybe not engaging too much. It's easier. I want you to think, putting your arm back up, what's something that's really empowering? A time when you really felt so strong. You did something that you knew. Look at her smile, right? And really keep that arm. Oh, man, stronger than her name. Okay, amazing. So we're going to take one more, and we're just going to show the downside, because this is often how we walk around. All right, so out here. All right, sorry, I'm going to bring it down. Okay, so I want you to think of a time when maybe you're like, oh, I can't believe I did that. That was so dumb. Geez, what? Okay. Right? You go limp. You completely, right? That was not me pressing harder or anything, was it? No. Awesome. She was amazing. Thank you. So it just goes to show the power of the mind on the body, how we stand, how we sit, how we show up, how we speak, how our energy is emanated out to the world by the power of our thoughts. Brilliant. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you. I promised you we were going to make this a little interactive. I'm going to put Tracey on the spot because Tracey's going to tell you a little bit about her body discovery, and I'm going to ask her to tell us about her body discovery while she selects one of you and helps discover something about your body in a very short amount of time. You may pick someone you know, or you may pick a volunteer from the audience.
Are there any volunteers?
Since you've already spoken, I think that the person on the aisle right there, and then we'll come back if we have time. Okay, come on up if you need me to hold the microphone while you do this. I feel like sometimes showing is easier than telling, or at least showing and telling at the same time is a bit more. And what is your name? Sydney, welcome. This is Tracey. Come on over.
Hi, Sydney.
We're not going to hurt you, I promise.
So the body discovery really came from all of the accumulated studies that I've done around the physical body and understanding the patterns. So, for example, I'm a spine specialist. So I did a second master's in 2003 at the University of Queensland in Australia. And while I was there, they started to realize that these deep muscles that we were talking about before, they shut down with pain and not loading. So these are two reasons why these deep muscles will shut down. So if we have pain, we'll get atrophy in the deep multifidus in our spine. It won't naturally come back. And if we don't load, if, for example, we don't have great posture, these deep muscles will also shut down. So in my body discovery, what I'm doing is I'm taking an individual through their body and looking for patterns where, for example, these deeper muscles have shut down, the muscles are inefficient through their range. If you could passively move a muscle through a certain range, you should be able to actively move it through that range against gravity. And then we look at where these key restrictions are, articular and myofascial. So I'm just going to show you, one test of something we want to see that maybe someone might be able to do. So if you stand, just stand normal, just stand straight, and then let's have you just start to squat down, like you're just going down into a chair. So what I'm looking for is where her knees tracking relative to her feet, right? Are they drifting in? It might start telling me something about the stability around her hip, right? And so I can already see that there's some internal coming in of her femurs. So it might say, oh, there's some weakness in these muscles, her glute medius. And it's so important because if you start to track inward, it puts an enormous amount of stress on your hip. Sometimes they get translated forward and it starts wearing away the cartilage and also the knee. So alignment is really, really important. So this is just a first basic one. And then if I ask you to stay there and swivel your knees right and left, and what I'm looking for is if you placed your hands right here on your pelvis, could you keep your pelvis completely level? So come down into your squat and swivel your knees to the right and to the left without moving at all in the pelvis. And you see how every time she turns her knees to the right, her pelvis turns to the right. She doesn't do it as much to this side. So there's something different going on that I need to help to change because that's going to put more strain on her lumbar spine. So there's these series of tests that we would like to take somebody through. And I'll just give you one more tip because I see it so much. It's like everybody does this, where they hang on one hip. Do you do that? Yeah, do you know which hip you hang on?
Always this one, and I always go out of my way. Because this side has gotten so weak. And because I notice when I'm sitting down, I'm almost supporting myself with that. So I'm working on, I'm working on strengthening these muscles over here.
Yeah, and what happens when we hang on the hip, we start to elongate the glute medius fibers, and they're not efficient just in upright. So when I go to stand on my leg, I drop. Or if I asked her to stand on one leg, I mean, that would definitely probably turn in more. And that puts so much strain on our joints. So for everyone, we want to avoid hanging on the hip. And we want to try to, is this our moment to show them also one thing that I was going to show before? Yeah?
If you wish to, but I'm going to ask Sydney to not be standing on one leg up here because we do not want you to fall. So, with all the wires. So.
Right, we're not going to do that one. We'll leave it at those two. But I think that's a really good demonstration of how patterns in the body can lead to wear and tear on our joints. And if we just learned, sometimes we just don't even know that it's a problem. Most people don't realize that hanging on their hip is a problem. Or hanging forward. If you just let yourself kind of hang on your ligaments, you're shutting down your deep core muscles. So I like to show people how to find that throughout their day. So Sydney, if we just shift your weight back into your heels just a little bit, there's this moment when you start to feel your lower tummy starting to draw in naturally. And that's a nice place for you to make sure you're on that center line when you're in your day instead of hanging forward of it or hanging to this side. The more you engage those muscles, the less exercise you're going to have to do. I mean, yes, we have to do some exercise, but I think 50% of it is just how we hold our posture day to day. So
thank you, Sydney. We appreciate you volunteering. And if we have time, we may stand up and all get to do some things that we just did. But Yamuna, I'm wondering if you'd like to show us an example of something you do, if that's possible. I know you don't have any of your foot rollers or any equipment here, but we'd love to welcome your body expertise.
What I thought was we would all do something.
Okay,
Great. On your feet. So whoever doesn't mind taking your shoes off.
No, I'm not taking mine off. I won't get them back on. But
you can stand up. And we can do something very simple. So I want to just start very simply with your heel. I mean, whoever thinks about their heels, the different parts of their feet. But I want you to take one heel forward. And just like you were a mortar and pestle, I just want you to be grinding something into the floor. Okay, just maybe about five times in one direction, and then do it in the other direction. And really press. Try to get around every single part of your heel. And then stand in parallel, hips distance apart. And just see if you can feel a difference between that heel and the other heel. Okay? And you see that you're leaning back, you're standing more in your heel. Okay? Very often what people do, and this goes with what Tracey was talking about, we stand on one side more than the other, or we stand with our weight into the ball of the foot. Okay, so if you start every movement with the weight into the ball of your foot, you never use that the whole movement of transferring weight from your heel all the way out to your toes. So let's just do that quickly to the other side. So just get it in front of you, pick up the toes and ball foot, and just start like, yeah, it's a mortar and pestle. You're just grinding. You're just pressing the heel into the floor. And you'll notice that one foot is harder to do. It feels a little more awkward than the other side. And that's part of that difference of how we carry our weight and our body on each side. And then go in the opposite direction. And so the heels are a real foundational place in the body, and very often because of shoes, they just get stuck to the rest of the foot. And so everything becomes like just stuck together. And then just stand with your feet. And I want you to see now if you can actually consciously shift your weight into your heels. Can you feel how you can do that? Now you see how your toes are just off the floor. Not a lot of weight into those toes right now, okay? Because when you're in your heels, then you can transfer weight. So I want you to do that. So your weight's in your heels, and just move it forward. So in theory, we have that, if we have that mobility through our feet, that makes the movements through our joints above much easier. But now I want you to do something else, okay? Because most people drop in, okay? And I want you to take your right foot and just lean all the way out to your right. Take your right hip, exaggerate it. So all your weight is in the outer foot. But make sure your feet are parallel, standing straight forward. All your weight is in that outside foot. So I want you, when you're in that outside of your foot, the bones are waking up the bones, so the lateral bone, so there's the fibula, and up into your femur, and up into your hip, up into your pelvis. And I just want you to hang out there, okay? Hang out there. Get your hip out a little bit more. So your big toe, all your toes are off the floor except the little one. So you're exaggerating something. You would not stand like this, okay? And now I want you to try and lower the little toe, the fourth toe, the third toe, the second toe, the first toe. And now look down. And the first thing that you've done is you've just created an arch. Right? So you look down and you go, wow, I have an arch on that foot. That was not hard. Okay? So now you're going to do it to the other side. So just shift your weight all the way to the other side. And hang out with that left hip out. Breathe. I find, I don't know why, but people stop breathing when they focus on their feet. I always have to remind people, breathe. Okay, so just hang out there. Take your hip out a little bit more. And now I want you to lower fifth toe, fourth toe, third toe, second toe, first toe. And just look down. And hopefully you have an arch. Now, I don't want you to lose the first side or the second side. I want you to come back into the center. And I want you to see, find your heels, find your outsides, and see how much you're standing better, standing taller. So that's simple stuff. We all can do it. And that's just the start.
But now I'm going to come back to each of you. I'm just very curious because you're all so very accomplished. I'm very curious, and I'm going to start with you, Tracey. Since we only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to ask you guys to keep this answer super short because I want to give some takeaways to everybody before we leave. So, Tracey, what is one thing you're doing to continue your growth and education in self-care?
Well, I have two different practices. I have an internal practice and I have external practices. So my internal practices are mostly meditation-based. I'm actually going to a meditation and sound mystery school for 12 days. It's a retreat, but it helps me to go inside. So I do a lot of inner work to find who I am inside and know things from inside. And then I do outside work, so that would be more like my typical yoga work, my body work, doing Pilates on a regular basis. So those are the two things I'm doing.
Thank you. Quick answer, Sonia. How are you continuing your education and personal growth?
I think I keep seeking things that are calling to me. So whatever adventure is next, I love the external internal because I think I do that. For me, I'm frequently looking for next adventures. So I don't know, I climbed Kilimanjaro a couple years ago, and the next one is maybe Everest Base Camp. But then I'm also going inside, and Last year I did a wisdom quest, so it was a 5-day nature solo, no food, and then and then some plant medicine. So that like opened up and busted open a whole other thing for me. So it's a constant quest.
I'm going to revise this. Yamuna, tell us one thing that you're doing to continue your education and self-care that maybe many of us might consider doing.
I do a lot of things, but right now I'm writing a couple books, new ideas. One of them is about my daughter, who had a tragic accident a year and a half ago and almost died. And so I've learned a lot about the power of prayer. I've learned a lot about unconditional love. I've learned a lot about we all love our children, though we can get pissed off at them, that how just love grows stronger. That's sort of on the sideline because she's alive and well. But she's here. She's here somewhere supporting me in this. But I also had a hip replacement, which was something I never thought I would do in my life because I help people. But I fell off a cliff, and I worked on people's bodies for 43 years, many times 10 hours a day, maybe over 70,000 hours of hands-on therapy with people. So, of course, I wore myself out. And so, but what I realized, and a friend of mine is here, Alita, that things happen to us because we can help other people with them. So I'm actually in the process of writing a book on, about the hips and about being wise about it way before, pre, post, because there's not a lot out there. So a lot of people do the rehabs and then they still don't feel 100%.
I think that's a perfect note to end on, because if the hips are a metaphor for life, they're always about change and embracing change and being at peace, perhaps, or finding a way with our emotions. And I think a lot of those things can happen through self-care. And I want to thank each one of you for your time and all of you for being such a great audience and participating.